From the time of Lemuria's destruction, we must pass over about 5,000 or 6,000 years. Those were years when seemingly no history was written except for a few scraps in India and Egypt. During this time, mankind apparently was reviving and repeopling the earth, after its almost total destruction by the submersion of Lemuria and other lands and the subsequent formation of gas belts and mountains. On entering Egypt 6,000 years ago, we find that many of the original symbols had survived, but were very much Egyptianized, especially in pattern and design, with an incomprehensible theology attached to them. A multitude of new ones had besides been added, most of them having esoteric or hidden meanings. This confusion increased when Upper and Lower Egypt merged into one kingdom. The two peoples not only commingled personally, but also their two sets of symbols. Thus two sets were made into one without any being discarded. It meant at least two symbols for every conception. So great was the confusion of the symbols in Egypt 4,000 to 5,000 years ago, that only one half of the priesthood understood those used in temples of other cities, although they might be but a few miles away. The next period to note in Egyptian history is the reign of the Ptolemies. Many Greek philosophers then went to Egypt and were taught the Egyptian sacred mysteries. This knowledge they took back to Greece, commencing about 600 BC. In Greece, the sacred mysteries were Grecianized. New names and further theology were added. The result generally was the creation of amusing myths. The familiar Grecian myths may therefore be said to be influenced by legends and teachings of Egypt and India. The next point to note is Lemuria's destruction, which removed her motherly control over religion and science throughout the world. The consequence was that each colony framed its own laws, at the same time making changes in religion to suit themselves. It is very noticeable that among all ancient people, when the direct control of the motherland was removed, those countries began to fall back. As time went on, they so degenerated in science and religion that these teachings of the first great civilization were at last entirely forgotten and became a thing of the past. Myths, those shadows of the past, alone remained. Here and there, however, solitary flowers strove to raise their heads out of the weeds which now choke the world's garden. Coming down to present time, I find writers, supposed to be scholars, giving meanings to the symbols that are purely mythical. The outcome, it may be, of fantastical dreams, and absolutely erroneous. Where they got their ideas I cannot imagine, certainly not from the ancient writings. The result is that science has drifted into an age of theories. Theories are made subservient to facts. A fact cannot be a fact unless their crazy theories prove it. The more abstruse and bizarre the theory is, the more, apparently, it is scientifically thought of. A theory that is not even understood by the originator himself, and by no one else on earth, meets with scientific approval. Archaeology. The date when archaeology was first studied reaches far back into the distant past. More than 15,000 years ago, the ancients had special colleges for its study. In these colleges, a very profound knowledge of their past was attained. The further we go back, the more profound we find that archaeological knowledge. Like all other ancient scientists, archaeology has a dark cloud cast over it. When Lemuria, the motherland, sank and the first great civilization was wiped out, only seeds, remnants of mankind, were left here and there, out of which a new civilization was in time to develop. It is virtually within memory of a living man that the study of archaeology has been again undertaken. Those who today call themselves archaeologists, generally diggers of the remains of man who lived, say, 1,000 to 5,000 years ago, these are but yesterday in human history. Why do they not go back to the beginning, as the ancients did 15,000 years ago? The archaeological study of the ancients included the whole history of man beginning from 200,000 years before, if the astronomical evidence whereby such dates are computed may be accepted. Archaeology embraces much more than it's thought to do. As the ancients studied it, it was a fascinating story. It may be deemed a religion, for at every step the student is confronted with the works of a supreme conception, with symbols of power and wisdom of the Creator. The sights cause him contemplation. Contemplation brings him in touch with the Supreme, the great architect and builder of all. As student progresses, he becomes aware that other branches of science are intimately connected with it: geology, chemistry, astronomy, and the cosmic forces. These must all be mastered to obtain the full benefit of what has been written and left behind by our forefathers for us, to act as guideposts to the greater knowledge. Nature shows man what is the origin of life. It shows man's connection with the great source and the great cosmic force which controls the universe. It also shows the origin of these forces. Thus, archaeology is but one letter in a long word that unfolds the wonders and glory of creation. It brings man in closer touch with the Heavenly Father. Again, incidentally, it shows that true science is the twin sister of religion. They are inseparable, for without religion man could not comprehend the cosmic forces, and without fully comprehending these forces he could not approach the great divine love which rules the universe. The first chapters of the Bible were intended to teach man the workings of these cosmic forces. They failed to do so, however, because of the mistranslations of the Mosaic writings, which were in the tongue and characters of the Motherland, and were copies of the sacred writings of Mu that Moses expounded when he was a high priest of the Temple of Sinai. The esoteric temple writings of Egypt related the cause of the flood, showing what the phenomenon actually was. Whoever wrote these chapters as we now have them failed to fully understand the ancient form of writing, as present man fails to understand the symbols and symbolisms which were there correctly copied. The early part of the Bible, therefore, has not fully carried out with the purpose for which it was intended. The Bible Moses actually handed down was the sacred and inspired writings, the greatest and most profound work ever penned by man, containing a science beyond the conception of present man.